Do you ever wake up and feel like you've done this exact same day before? Kind of like you're just dragging yourself through this copy-paste version of life. It's like Groundhog Day, but just, without the comedy. Same alarm, same breakfast, same day at your job, same scroll on your phone, and the same tired evenings where you promise yourself that you're going to do something differently this time, but you never do. That exact feeling, you're not alone. A recent survey has actually found that over 61% of adults feel like they're just stuck in this repetitive routine. That is literally more than half of the population walking around on autopilot. So here's a question that might sting a little bit, depending on how you look at it. How many of your last 30 days can you actually remember clearly? Exactly. Pretty scary, isn't it? And the worst part is that most people don't even realize this. They're going to be stuck for years until they finally do something about it. But there is a way out. Actually, there's a few. However, before we get into that, let's talk about why this even happens in the first place. So you see, the brain loves patterns. Humans are habitual creatures. There's nothing we can do about that. And while that's great for, brushing your teeth or chewing your food without thinking about it, it is absolutely brutal for living a meaningful life. We all fall into routines, not because we're lazy, but because our brain wants us to. Because our brain loves repetition, because it sees safety in it. But the problem with safety is that it can be mundane. There's not much excitement about it. That's why people love riding motorcycles and going on roller coasters and other things like that. But here is where it gets a bit more uncomfortable. When your brain gets used to this, I'm going to call it sameness, it literally stops registering novelty. It dulls your memory, flattens your emotions, and makes time feel like it's literally sped up. That's why the last 6 months felt more like 2. There's an actual term for this, and it's called temporal compression. And it's a bit of a psychological phenomenon, because when every single day is the same, or at the very least very similar, your brain will literally compress all of that time into a single memory. So no wonder life feels like it is just flying by. But here's the good news. There's an actual proven way to just snap out of this loop. And it's not about, moving to Bali and starting your own little surf shop, as cool as that would be, to be fair. It's actually pretty simple and also relatively small. You might also actually find it weird now that I think about it. But hear me out. I want you to create friction. That's right, friction, okay? Tiny little disruptions that force your brain to think and wake up. Something as simple as just slightly altering your route to work. So instead of taking one street, you take another, and it takes you 2 minutes longer, but it's a disruption. Whilst you're brushing teeth, if you're right-handed, use your left hand. Your brain will literally be forced to wake up and think on the spot because it's not used to something like that. But doing that isn't enough, okay? Because if you just stop there and do it once or twice, it's not going to do anything. But if you just carry on doing the exact same thing all the time, the problem is you're going to create a brand new loop, because eventually your brain will get used to it. That's why you need to create variety that causes friction to your current routine. Because there's another thing we need to think about. What do we actually want when we're talking about feeling stuck and feeling like we're just living in this loop? Because let's be honest, no one out there is saying, I want to stop repeating days. A bit robotic, it's not something we would actually say ourselves. What people really want is just to feel alive again. Feel like what they're doing is meaningful. Because how nice is it going to bed and just saying to yourself, do you know what? Today was a good day. I actually had a good time. How good does that feel? Obviously we get those days, but they tend to be for occasions, right? Maybe an event, maybe a holiday, maybe you won something at work. It's just those little small moments throughout the whole picture, which when we really think about it, don't actually happen that often if we don't let them. So we don't have to, overhaul our entire lifestyle in order to achieve this. What we need to do is we need to create anchors throughout the day. And what do I mean by an anchor? All you need are small moments where you can be emotionally invested into them. Because that way, your brain is actually going to remember that. Something like having a 10-minute proper conversation with someone without ever checking your phone. Spending just 15 minutes learning a new skill, like, I don't know, maybe a new language on Duolingo, or trying to learn the Rubik's Cube. Literally could be anything you want, but just 15 minutes. Or taking a photo of something beautiful or cool every single day. Personally, I think macro photography looks really cool. You know, when people actually get up close and personal to objects. I don't know, I've always thought it looked pretty interesting. And doing that every day kind of seems like it would build like a really cool bank of memories doing that. So I don't know, maybe you can try it. Maybe I'll try it one day. Why not? I do actually quite like it. Because small acts, when done consciously, they become meaningful and our brain actually registers them. People who reflect and track actually tend to have 25 to 30% better memory recall than people who don't. That's quite a big jump. Imagine remembering 1/3 more of everything that you do. It's actually quite a lot when you think about it. But there's still one more thing that's required to complete this puzzle of just completely destroying the feeling of like you're living in a loop. Because if it was just, you know, small moments or habits, well, you would have done that by now, right? Because it's pretty simple to actually do. So what actually shifts your identity and just gets rid of this loop for good? Because here's the thing, most people don't actually want to break the loop. They say they do, but they don't. Because it's comfortable, it's easy, your brain is used to it. And let's be honest, we all enjoy comfort. But comfort slowly wears you down. And that is the trap. Because you try a new habit, you start something new, you wake up early for a couple of weeks, and then the novelty just, you know, wears off, and we are right back where we started. The loop just begins all over again. So the exit from that is not always about what you do. Sometimes it's about what you actually remove. Remember when we spoke about friction earlier? How you can create friction to disturb your current routine? Well, friction works both ways, because you can also remove friction from the things that actually matter. So you won't need motivation to actually just get up and do them. An example of that could be your guitar. If it's just locked away in a cupboard somewhere, you're probably not going to pick it up to play it. But if it's just right beside your bed, there's a much higher chance of you just picking it up and just having a play on it. If you said you're going to do some journaling or some writing down the following morning, if you actually leave it up, opened on your desk, you're going to be 3 times more likely to actually write in that journal the following day. So work on creating that internal shift first, because that shift is where most people get stuck. And it's not because they can't change, because everybody can change. It's because they haven't asked themselves this one important question, and that is, what part of me actually benefits from remaining inside the loop? You're sat there probably thinking, well, nothing, if much at all. And that's kind of what I'm trying to say. But if you don't face that honestly, you will remain exactly where you are. So if you feel like every single day just blends into the next, like you're alive, but not really living, know this, you're not stuck because you're failing at life or because everyone else just has it figured out. You're stuck because your life just simply become too familiar for you to notice. But this chapter isn't permanent, and breaking it doesn't take a massive leap. It starts with small, conscious shifts, repeated for a purpose. You don't need permission from anybody. You don't need to wait for the right time. You just need to remember that the power to change your day is in your hands, and it's up to you to break this loop. I wish you the best, and I will see you next week. Bye bye.